Welcome to the Fox 5 Live Zone on this Thursday, September 18th. I'm producer Chris, filling in for Guy Lambert, celebrating his birthday week. Another busy day. Mayor Bowser testifying on Capitol Hill in front of the Oversight Committee. Jimmy Kimmel suspended, and there are major issues over whether it was a violation of free speech. Plus, Reagan National Airport right here in the DMV, one of the worst in the country. We're going to find out why. First, though, no delays probably today, Tucker, at any airports in the region because it is absolutely beautiful out.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, it's getting better. Each hour it's getting a little better. You're right.
Okay, well, I'll be honest with you. If someone out there owned the motorcycle and chose to ride it to work today, it was a very pleasant experience.
Well, yeah, what you're trying to refer to is my Harley.
Yes.
Yeah, it was quite amazing.
Wild hog over here.
Yeah.
That was a movie about a bunch of old guys on motorcycles.
That was my nickname in college. Thank you for laughing.
It's a
I'll be here all day.
show. No FCC violations. We're good.
Thank you for playing.
Let's talk about the weather.
Okay, let's do the weather. Yes, afternoon forecast could not be nicer. Get out on your bicycle, Chris. You know, listen. If you got a bike, do your bike thing, but you know, just be careful, okay?
Oh yes, I recommend that to everyone.
Okay. 72
all the gear all the time.
72 degrees. I need you here tomorrow, so I can continue with my one-liners.
Continue with yes.
Yeah. Okay. Honestly, here the forecast looks really nice for the rest of the afternoon. Will be partly sunny. I don't want to promise full sunshine. We're still drying out the atmosphere. We picked up about a little more than 0.8 of an inch of rain in the last 2 days. Very welcome rain, by the way. Really need it, and it's good stuff. But you can see that live shot in Reston. We're clearing out. Okay, this is fascinating. Clouds are lingering a little bit by the bay and southern Maryland, and we had a pocket of some pretty good fog this morning out in the mountains, out near Bluemont, out there in extreme western Loudoun County, parts of Washington County. You can still see some cloud cover. That will burn off as well. So areas that are still seeing clouds locally should see more and more sunshine this afternoon. And here inside the Beltway will be kind of partly sunny and milder, warmer, low 80s later this afternoon.
Okay.
All systems go for a pleasant afternoon, a little breezy out there as well. Okay, looking down the road, as in tonight, tomorrow, fantastic. If you look back to the Great Lakes, clear as can be. That's headed in our direction. We will be a little on the warm side around here for the day tomorrow with high temperatures expected to be in the upper 80s. That's this afternoon.
There he goes. Bless you.
Nothing like the perils of live television.
I think it's me. This is the second time this week.
Well, that is certain cologne you're wearing that's a little on the strong side.
We both know that's not true.
Low 80s out there. Okay, low 80s today, upper 80s tomorrow. Could we hit 90 tomorrow? Probably not, but that might be our warmest day for the remainder of September. So get out and enjoy the afternoon. Perfect for Friday night football, Friday night. Saturday, fabulous. I know we got a lot going on area-wide. Sunday, Chris, is Commanders kickoff at 1 o'clock. And I think we'll have more clouds and sun, but it should be dry. The shower activity will be very limited with temps right around 73, 74 kickoff.
I mean, it looks absolutely beautiful out there. Don't quote me on this, but I believe that this weekend is the kickoff to Oktoberfest, so maybe a good weekend to break out the later hose.
We're doing a lot of that. Yeah, I saw that our colleague Annie Mae was out in Middleburg doing Oktoberfest.
Was she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right.
Well, sounds like fun to me. Tucker, thank you so much. That looks like a great forecast. Break out the tip jar. And if you want more, Tucker, if this wasn't enough, you want more one-liners and sneezes, I guess, you can check it out anytime. Fox 5 Weather on the Go on the Fox Local app, which, as always, is where I hope you are watching us right now.
You heard us mention the airports. You see in the small corner screen right now, Air Force One on the tarmac. President Trump getting ready to depart the United Kingdom after his trip there, heading back to the United States. All right, time now. Coming up on 12:05, we want to get to some of the stories Fox 5 is following today, and we're going to start off with the big one happening right now on Capitol Hill. You see D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, Council Chairman Phil Mendelson, and Attorney General Brian Schwab all testifying in front of a House Oversight Committee. They're talking about everything from crime policies to crime stats, the recent National Guard deployment and federal surge, statehood, and much more. DC leaders maintain that takeover and the recent House bills are an attack on DC home rule. Apologies. Fox 5's Melanie Onwick reports Republicans believe that because Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital, they have a right and duty to intervene in city affairs. We'll have much more on this story coming up. We will let you listen in. coming up in just a little bit.
The other big story here at home, the Washington Commanders returning to the district. This is the DC Council approves the RFK Stadium bill yesterday by a vote of 11-2. The $3.7 billion deal makes way for the team to build a new 65,000-seat stadium at the old RFK site in Northeast DC. They're bringing the team home. It's a massive plan to not only bring the stadium back to life, but develop the surrounding area with housing, more retail stores, and a sportsplex. It's the largest private investment in the city's history. The Commanders are expected to play their first game at the new stadium, in the year 2030. The other big story today, you may have seen last night when it broke, Jimmy Kimmel, ABC, has suspended his show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, indefinitely after pressure from the FCC and ABC affiliates across the country. It came over comments the late night host made about the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the remarks made during his monologue on Monday night. Take a listen.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
So that was just a brief portion of it. The move follows Nexstar's decision to pull the show from all of its ABC affiliates. Today, Sinclair Broadcast Group, which operates 30 ABC affiliates, including the one here in Washington, D.C., said they will air a tribute special for Charlie Kirk in Jimmy Kimmel's time slot Friday night. The network has not said when or if the show will return. So for more on the move, the backlash, what comes next, and what else is happening in the world of politics, we want to turn to Andrea Kaye, the political strategist and host of the Andrea Kaye Show. Thanks so much for joining us on the Live Zone today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, I want to start off with Jimmy Kimmel and get your thoughts on this decision by Disney ABC to pull his show indefinitely.
Well, I've got a few thoughts about it. First of all, everybody's claiming that this is a free speech issue. I don't think it's a free speech issue. He's not in jail today. You know, he had the right to say, and we don't even know who did he write that himself, but we know he spoke it, and he had the right to make those comments and say whatever he wanted to say. And those that employ him or produce the show or that are the affiliates, Sinclair being the largest affiliate of ABC, they had the right to say, you know what, we don't want you on our airwaves anymore. It was entirely inappropriate. And particularly since what he did was such a blatant lie, it was such propaganda to come out after the police and the press conference that we had of the charging documents that showed unequivocally that this man, the assassin, was not MAGA. His ideology was far leftist, and for Jimmy Kimmel to come out and to blame it on MAGA was just, it wasn't just inappropriate. You have to wonder, why would he do that? Was he trying to put a target on MAGA's back? Because the dehumanizing rhetoric used by the left to declare that MAGA are white supremacists, we're still hearing that from Jasmine Crockett, that we're Nazis and we're fascists, that kind of dehumanizing rhetoric is what got Charlie Kirk assassinated. And what Jimmy Kimmel was trying to do unsuccessfully was trying to continue to proffer the false narrative that violence goes both ways in this country, and it doesn't.
Why not leave it up to the viewers, though? Why are the stations stepping in and demanding that his show be removed? If people don't want to watch him, they don't have to watch him. Why actually pull him from the airwaves?
Well, that was their choice. I haven't watched Jimmy Kimmel. I would not have had any idea what he said if this story hadn't broken. And the answer to that is because the people who employed him had a right to decide what to do with him. That's why they did it. If I'm a doctor and I've got a private medical practice and I find out a nurse who worked for me had celebrated murder, I wouldn't wait to hear from my patients whether or not they saw the social media post and decided to get rid of her. Businesses, this is what it means to live in a free society. You have the right to say whatever you want to say, and your employers have the right to decide whether or not to hire you or keep you employed. I think the left's idea of freedom is that they get to say, do, and behave however they want, and everybody else is supposed to put up with it. Thereby, their definition of freedom is subjugation.
What about the accusations that this has something to do with an FCC merger between Nexstar and Tegna that they need FCC approval for, and then right before this decision was made, the FCC chairman speaks out about it? Because there are some echoes, according to some people out there, that this is also what happened to Stephen Colbert when Paramount and Skydance were trying to force a merger through and needed FCC approval as well.
Look, I think, again, I go back to it being a free market system, and they had a right for whatever reason to pull him from the air. And they said they're doing it temporarily and they're going to review the situation. Look, when Stephen Colbert, what was revealed, it's been a while since we covered that story. But the reality of Stephen Colbert is that they were bleeding out. Why keep him? It really wasn't about Paramount. It was about the fact that they were bleeding out. They weren't making any money. And why? Because late night, which is part of the problem and part of one of the things that I think they're trying to figure out as well over at Sinclair and the people involved with Jimmy Kimmel, is where's the comedy and late night comedy anymore? That's been part of the problem. And to try to blame it as though it's some lawsuit pressure from President Trump or the FCC is just a red herring. I think the Stephen Colbert story, you asked me, well, why not just let the markets decide? Well, I think they have decided. I think these shows are bleeding out and they've been kept on as propagandist machines for the left. And I think this is a part of the market speaking.
All right, well, this story is definitely not going to go away anytime soon, and we're actually going to have more on it with attorney Dante Mills coming up a little later. In the meantime, I want to get back to what we talked about. You see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, bottom right-hand corner of your screen, I'm not sure which way you're looking at. I'm all backwards over here. But President Trump getting ready to depart from the UK. He announced a major deal this morning alongside UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. The two signed a tech prosperity deal, including major AI investments from companies like NVIDIA, OpenAI, and Google. The deal also includes civil nuclear power to help lower bills and increase energy security. So a big deal for U.S. and UK relationship, Andrea.
Yeah, this story has just really been a little bit of a bright spot for me amidst all the darkness and after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I just loved yesterday seeing this great show of unity between these two great longstanding allies. It was a really special, they don't use the term state dinner, but this bringing Trump there was actually a really special move. This has not ever been done. It was actually historic. And I think at a time in which we need unity in this country, here and abroad, I think that the unity that was showed between these two longstanding allies was phenomenal, despite the fact that we have disagreements with them on so many things. I love the fact that these two men hammered out a deal that's good economically for both countries. And there are some people today that are saying, well, I wish Trump had said, we're not going to do this deal until you do X, Y, and Z regarding free speech and immigration over in the country. But I think Trump has made his thoughts clear to the UK and Europe, his thoughts about how they've given over their nations and destroyed their sovereignty with their immigration, and that he disagrees with what's going on with speech. But at the end of the day, what's gone on in the last couple of days with Trump and Starmer in the UK, I think is great news. And that's what we should focus on.
Yeah, President Trump, the first U.S. president for two, like you said, state visits over in the United Kingdom. President Trump said on Truth Social Wednesday that he was designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization. President Trump's previous FBI director, Christopher Wray, said back in 2020 testimony that Antifa is an ideology, not an organization, therefore lacking the structure that would usually allow it to be designated as a terror group by the federal government. So the president was considering this move back in 2020. This followed protests around the killing of George Floyd. Why now is he back focused on this topic? And is this something that actually is possible?
Well, I think it is possible, because what's different now is he actually has people in the FBI and in the Department of Justice who actually care about, previously the FBI and the Department of Justice, their whole goal seemed to be covering up the crimes of the left and persecuting and prosecuting anybody who was in the political opposition, instead of going after terrorism and terrorist organizations. In fact, they changed the counterterrorism department to go after parents who speak up at school board meetings, anybody that questions the outcome of elections, instead of going after the real terrorists, including radical Islam. I think what we have now is we actually have an attorney general and others who understand that this is a well-funded movement, and they have identified the people behind Antifa who have been funding it, and they're planning on seizing assets and applying RICO statutes. The behavior of Antifa was obviously well-funded. How did all those pallets of bricks show up outside the CNN headquarters and other places? But Bill Barr, who was the protector of the swamp, refused to do anything about it. You just have to go back and watch some old videos to see how coordinated it obviously was, and also to see the acts of terrorism against people like Andy Ngo, who with their cement milkshakes and assaults on people, that it literally is a terrorist movement.
Let me ask a follow-up question to that. We have seen recently what has happened outside of Venezuela, where the president has declared some of these drug cartels as terrorist organizations, and that has resulted in basically bombings of these boats. Can we assume that that could be a possible outcome of this designation towards Antifa as well then?
Well, I think what they're trying to do with Antifa is they're trying to, like I said, Anna Polina Luna yesterday has called for seizing the assets. I can't remember his first name. His last name is Singham. I believe he lives in China, and he has been funding. He funded the riots in LA. He's been funding Antifa movements and other activities. I think they want to apply RICO statutes and those types of things. I don't think there's any plans to try to bomb anybody at this point. I think that was them taking out a boat of drug smugglers. I think was a phenomenal move, and reflects the fact that we are now the Department of War, not the Department of Defense. But I also agree, though, that these drug terrorists, I think that's a rightful declaration. Right now, I think the stats still remain that the largest killer of people between the ages of 18 and 45 is fentanyl, and we haven't done enough to try to stop that.
All right, I want to bring it back home now and talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. I mentioned a little earlier, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and other D.C. officials testifying before the House on D.C. crime policies, crime stats, and more. This comes after the House passed 4 bills, including one that allows 14-year-olds to be charged as adults. D.C. leaders have called it the most aggressive attack on the district's home rule in decades. Violent crime in the city is currently 28%, less than this time last year. So what do you expect from today's hearing, and what do you see for the future of home rule here in the district?
Well, first of all, I'm not an attorney, so there are some legalities involved with this that are outside of my wheelhouse. What I always expect out of these hearings, though, these hearings are nothing but theatrical, performative works of bad art. So I tend to not really give them a whole lot of credence. I mean, they're meant to make us think that somebody's going to be held accountable or that there's real oversight going on. But when it comes to crime in DC, it has worked. Trump bringing in the National Guard. I know because of all the family and friends I have living in the area I have friends and family that moved out of DC to Virginia because they weren't safe walking the streets. And when it comes to these crime bills, there have been Democrats. I think it was the one that reduced the charges where now they've lowered the age, where now you can be charged as an adult at the age of 14. 30 Democrats crossed the aisle, or maybe even 31, to vote for that. 8 Democrats actually even voted for another one of the crime bills, which I think makes it legal now for the police to go after somebody who's fleeing. How did we have in DC where the police was not allowed to go chase after somebody who committed a crime and was fleeing? This is common sense stuff that is being implemented there, and in a bipartisan fashion in some instances, because we have got to restore law and order across all the cities in this country. And of the 20 cities that have the highest crime rates across the country, 19 of them are being run by Democrats.
All right, let's talk about jobs now, blue-collar jobs in particular, because some congressional leaders and tradesmen are calling for the expansion of alternatives to 4-year college degrees. The House Subcommittee on Economic Growth, Energy Policy, and Regulatory Affairs, raising concerns about what it says is an unprecedented surplus of college graduates in an economy that needs tradesmen. The committee says the Trump administration is working to offer alternatives for young Americans. According to Pew Research, young Americans had the lowest job satisfaction compared to other age groups. blue-collar work currently represents a quarter of the current workforce. So is this a good direction for the country to encourage trades?
Oh, absolutely it is. Instead of coming out of college with some liberal arts degree that's not going to, and $250,000 in debt, how about go take up a trade, which right out the gate, you can make six figures, at least here in San Diego County. We're desperate for trades. Good luck if you've got a leak on a weekend trying to get a plumber. Those are some of the people living in some of the biggest houses in our neighborhoods, or people in the trades. And there's also companies here in San Diego County that have fleets in their company, that where they started out maybe as an electrician, and now they've got a large company employing 100 people, and they're living large without the specter of debt. And so I think that this is a great move. I think that it was a disservice to young people to say that everybody had to go to a college or university. And so we took trade classes out of our schools. I remember taking shop class when I was a kid. I loved it so much. I had no talent for it or ability. So, I had to go to college and get a business degree. But it's been proven nowadays. Our society and the business community is different now as well. We're not the same country as we used to be. It's not necessarily anymore to have a college degree to be a success in this country.
We've also seen how popular some of those trades are on TikTok. A lot of young people being inspired by seeing a day in the life of people in some of these industries that they may have never thought about before. I want to wrap up by talking about the Federal Reserve now, because the Federal Reserve cut interest rates yesterday for the first time in 9 months. The central bank lowered its benchmark rate by a quarter point to 4.1%. The move aims to boost borrowing and hiring, despite inflation remaining above the Fed's 2% target. Federal Chair Jerome Powell says 2 more rate cuts are expected this year. What do you make of this rate cut? And was it less than what President Trump wanted?
Well, I believe it was less than what he wanted, but I'm not one of these. We have a saying in the South: some people would complain if they had a ham under each arm. Look, I'm just glad to see that we have a rate cut, and I believe that mortgage rates were already going down because mortgage companies were taking matters into their own hands as people were unable to buy homes. But this is a great move, and I hope that it continues, because we have people not only unable to buy a home in this country, but people that during the years of COVID had to max out their credit cards in order to survive, and then have been unable and having to go bankrupt because they can't pay it off. And so I think I think it's really been out of spite that Powell did not lower the rates previously. And I want to wrap on this. Clearly lowering the interest rates would and the effect on mortgage rates and how important that is can be exemplified by the commissioner who has allegedly, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she allegedly committed mortgage fraud because she knew the value of getting lower mortgage rates. So hopefully Americans will have a better access to buying a home now.
So that was Lisa Cook, I believe, and President
Yes.
Trump just
Thank
today
you.
asked the Supreme Court for an emergency order to remove her from the federal board. Andrea Kaye, political strategist, host of the Andrea Kaye Show. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break. More Live Zone coming up right after this.
Welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone on
This Thursday afternoon. If you're anything like me, your social media feed may have been flooded by the news that Disney ABC has decided to suspend Jimmy Kimmel, allegedly for the comments that he made about Charlie Kirk's death and ties to the MAGA movement on his show Monday night. However, there have been a lot of questions about the impact on free speech and the role that some of the TV station groups have played in this decision, along with the FCC chairman. For more on this, Dante Mills, an attorney whose client list includes Kevin Hart, joining us now live on the Live Zone. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I want to start off with your initial reaction when you heard this news. What did you make of this?
I think it's a problem. Freedom of speech is a pillar in our nation. I think it allows us to interact with each other, to be able to speak our minds without anyone saying, I disagree with you, so you can't speak. And that's what's happening here, is a restriction on freedom of speech. Now, I want to make this clear. That television company had the right to fire, cancel Kimmel's contract, pull him off the air. They have every absolute right to do that. But you can't deny the fact that the government, through the FCC, influenced that decision by making a threat and saying you can remove him either the easy way or the hard way. That is the problem, because the FCC has the ability to control things that television network does. And we also know that there's a merger that's being planned that the FCC has to approve. So if that network says, I can either fire Jimmy Kimmel or suspend him, or have this merger that we really want held up and tied up, the easy way is getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel, and that's what happened. Now, the network could have decided they didn't like his comments and let him go otherwise, but we'll never know what the true reason is because the FCC weighed in, and that's what's creating the issues here. You have a governmental agency influencing someone to remove one of their employees because they didn't like what they were saying. And that's a problem that goes against the pillar of our country, which is freedom of speech.
So you mentioned the possible merger. You mentioned the FCC chair involvement. For some critics, this gives sort of echoes, and I brought this up with Andrea Kaye when we just talked about it, about what happened with Stephen Colbert and The Late Show. CBS also had that Paramount Skydance merger. They needed FCC approval on. The president had been outspoken about CBS, whether it was 60 Minutes or his distaste for Stephen Colbert. And people saw that as a similar move with them canceling his show. However, it wasn't immediately pulled. He has until the end of the year. They said they were ending the franchise. Do you get sort of the same sense that this is stations or networks bowing to pushback or the threats of what could happen from the Trump administration?
What's more direct here, and as you said with Colbert, it was kind of strung out over time, so you have some, it's uncertainty whether there was a direct connection. Here, the comments were made on Monday, and the network heard those comments. Those comments were played. I'm sure they got feedback on those comments, and nothing happened Tuesday at all. But then the FCC chair went and spoke on Wednesday and said, remove him either the easy way or the hard way, and he was removed that same day. So I think the timeline makes it absolutely certain what's happening here. And I was talking to some of my clients about this yesterday. Some of my clients are in the entertainment industry. They're comedians, in fact, well known. And the concern is now what happens is they may have a show, or whether it's a comedy show or a television show, where a network says, you know what, don't talk about this subject because I don't want to get into a fight with the president or this administration. So these topics are off limits to you. And what is that comedian going to do except have their speech restricted because the network is afraid that the administration is going to penalize them if they say something that the administration doesn't like, and that's a problem.
So I brought this up with Andrea as well, but why are the station groups making the decision of what viewers should see rather than letting the viewers decide if they want to watch that programming or not?
Well, listen, the station groups are private companies. They have the right to, and I want to be clear about this. These station groups have the right to decide what they want on their airwaves. I'm not questioning that. I'm not saying that a station group can't decide we don't like Jimmy Kimmel anymore, so we're not going to play him. They have the right to do that. They're a private company. But that decision should not be controlled by the government who's weighing in and making a threat that if you don't, we're going to give you a hard time. That's where the issue is. Otherwise, in this country, most work is at-will employment, except when you're dealing with contracts. It's mostly at-will employment where you can fire somebody if you want. It's your company, you can do that. But we don't want that decision to be made by the government influencing a company and saying, we don't like what's being said, so if you keep them on, I'm going to make your life difficult. That's not how this country is supposed to work, and that's specifically what the problem is.
All right, well, if you're just joining us here on the Fox 5 Live Zone at 12:30, this is Dante Mills, an attorney whose client list includes Kevin Hart. We're talking about the decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel Live over comments he made about Charlie Kirk's death earlier this week. Let me ask you a question. What happens next? And what if, whether it's Jimmy Kimmel, whether it's Disney ABC, whether it's somebody like Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, also on the president's, let's just say, hit list. I'm leaving out the letter S there because he made a post on Truth Social last night calling them unfunny and they should be next. What steps can either fans or these late night comedians, these talk show hosts themselves take to sort of push back or fight back?
That's a question that I was trying to work through last night during these conversations as well, because, for example, Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a direct claim against really anybody because he can be fired by the network and he can be suspended by that network. They have the right to do that. So he really doesn't have a claim against them. And he doesn't have a direct claim against the government because they necessarily didn't pull the trigger, right? They just influence, and you don't really have a claim against them for doing that. I think these networks are going to have to stand up, and it's a hard request when you have the president of the United States suggesting, not more than suggesting, that if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to make your life difficult for this network. There's a lot of fines that can be levied. There's mergers that they can block. It's hard to ask these networks to ignore that. But somebody is going to have to stand up. We saw this with the universities. Some of the universities just said, you know what, we'll pay a fine, we'll do whatever you want us to do because we don't want our funding pulled. But Harvard stood up, and when they did, they won. Some law firms with Donald Trump coming after law firms said, I don't want the issues, I don't want trouble, I'm going to do what you want me to do. But some law firms stood up, and when they did, they won. So it's going to take some networks standing up and saying, I know I'm going to be in the crosshairs, but I'm going to take this to court, and I know I'm going to win because you can't do that. You don't have the right to influence or control speech on my network. But it's risky because they have to get to that point. They have to get through whatever fines they're going to face before they get to court. They're going to have to get through whatever mergers or things that are going to be blocked for that network until they get to court. And that's the threat that's looming over their head. So it's easy to sit back and say, you know what, these networks need to stand up. But realistically, they're a business. And they're making a business decision saying, I would rather fire one comedian than to go against the government of the United States that I know is going to be looking to punish me however they can if I don't do what they want. So that's the reality of this situation.
All right, well, we focused on the government, we focused on the network, but what about the, let's just say, normal people, the viewers, the fans, whether they're fans of Jimmy Kimmel or not, whether they're fans of his brand of comedy or not, whether they're fans of shows like Gutfield or not? What can they do? Because they could be next. Their favorite shows could be next. Is there anything that people watching at home can do if they don't like this decision, regardless of whether they like Jimmy Kimmel or not?
But you would say continue to support, but unfortunately he's off the network. So if he goes somewhere else, if he goes to another network or takes it to some other platform, you would ask the fans to support him there so that that network can know what they lost out on, and hopefully they won't do the same thing the next time this situation comes up. They'll ride the wave and know that they're going to have support of the fans, and their network won't lose support if they go against the government. As a fan, the honest answer is, other than supporting that artist wherever they go, there's not much that we can do because ultimately the power is going to be in the hands of the network, whether they decide to kind of cater to the administration or not. That's up to them. But if that artist goes somewhere else and they receive a lot of support, you would hope that they would then be able to kind of make back whatever contract they lost and keep the hope alive that you can say what you want, which everybody has the right to do, And even if you're penalized for it, you can bounce back from that. We want people comfortable knowing that they still have freedom of speech here in this country, and they're not going to lose everything if they say something. That we don't want that to be the case. So the continued support of the fans is what could happen and what should happen. If he pops up somewhere else, support him, because he didn't do anything illegal. He didn't do anything he wasn't supposed to do. He was operating a right that we have in this country to say his opinion, whether you agree with it or not. So continue to support these artists out here, because we need them to move the conversations, to use comedy and satire to bring up tough conversations that we talk about. That's a role of comedians in this society. We don't want to silence them. So support goes a long way. Just keep that support there, because it's going to be a difficult time. I'm telling you, what we're going to see is networks and places saying, leave these topics alone. Do not talk about these topics on my network, because I don't want to deal with this administration. And that's just not where we want to be as a country.
All right. I have a feeling this story is not going to go away anytime soon. And I also have the feeling that someday soon the streaming airwaves will be a lot more crowded. Dante Mills, attorney, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Fox 5 Live Zone.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to take you back to Capitol Hill now, where D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and other D.C. leaders testifying in front of an oversight committee. Take a listen.
Has crime gone down since the president deployed the National Guard and other federal agencies, Mayor Bowser?
I already mentioned, Congressman, the numbers during the federal surge.
So it has gone down?
It accelerated, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mendelson, you said in criticism to the National Guard being present in D.C., you said that they looked bored. I'm going to ask you a question, sir. Would you rather have National Guardsmen standing posts around D.C. looking bored but driving down crime, or continue to be ranked in the top 10 in the country in violent crime?
Well, as I was trying to say, depending upon how you look at the data, we don't even place in the top 25. Now, in my testimony, I outlined
That's definitely
8
not the
ways.
reporting that I've seen. You
Well,
guys are
US
ranked,
News
you
and
guys are
World
ranked number
Report.
7. You
U.S.
guys
News
are
and
ranked
World
number
Report,
7.
you can see that study.
All right, moving on. Councilman Mendelson, did you vote with the rest of the city council to defund the police by $15 million in 2020?
I don't believe that's the correct amount, but I did vote
Yeah, you
for the
did.
budget then.
You did. Okay, Councilman, did you call the police in July 2025 because of a protest outside of your home?
I called 911.
Okay,
It was at midnight. In fact, it was 12:30 in the morning.
right?
And it was a
Okay.
number of individuals who were actually breaking the law, the Residential Tranquility Act, with how
Right.
loud they were.
Okay, so you voted to defund policing by $15 million in 2020 with the rest of the council. This is what the police union, police officers had to say about your
I
interaction
know what
with
you're
the
going to
police.
say, and I've already said
Yeah,
to Mr. Pemberton.
well, I'm going to say it, so you're not going to interrupt me. Over the weekend, Chairman Mendelson called the police because there were peaceful protesters at his house, because he decimated the police department with horrible legislation, and our staffing has now 800-plus vacancies. There was a delay in responding to his home. Because of the delay, Chairman Mendelson called and screamed at OUC and MPD staff. There is now a permanent security detail at his home staffed by an MPD officer who should be handling more important matters. We currently have 3,100 total sworn members, the lowest in 50 years, and we now have to dedicate one of them to be a security blanket for a man who hates cops, while other people calling 911 for real emergencies will have to wait. This nonsense must end immediately. So that's what the police department had to say
No,
about you in
police
that
union,
incident.
not police
The
department,
Yeah, the
sir.
police union, the union that
I'm aware of that
represents police
statement,
officers.
and it's false on
Do they
numerous
represent police
points.
officers, Mr. Mendelson, the police union?
It's the union
Thank
president.
you. Okay, Attorney General Schwab, do you agree that all legal measures should be on the table to combat crime and lawlessness in the city?
I do.
Okay. Then why historically has the D.C. Attorney General declined to prosecute crimes? According to media reports, D.C. declined to prosecute crimes in 67% of arrests in 2023 under A.G. Graves. The D.C. quarterly clearance reports from your office show a similar trend in 2025 through Q1 and 2. You are only prosecuting 53% of gun-related homicides, 50% of sex abuse cases involving a knife, and 37% of non-fatal shootings. There is also an ongoing investigation into if the DC crime data was manipulated under Joe Biden so that historic level of crime didn't look as bad on paper. And I look forward to the outcome of this investigation. Now,
Mr. Crane, if I can
going
answer
back to your
can I answer
initial
your question?
answer, is that doing everything you can to protect this city?
The statistics that you just read are the statistics not from my office, but from the federal U.S. Attorney's Office. The prosecution rates from the Office of Attorney General have been in excess of 84% for violent crime over the last 2 years. So the statistics you rely on to malign my office don't come from my office. They come from the federal U.S. Attorney's Office.
So you're prosecuting all of these crimes is what you're saying?
The jurisdiction of the Office of Attorney General in the District of Columbia is to prosecute juvenile delinquency crimes, and last year we prosecuted more than 84% of the violent juvenile crimes that MPD brought to us. We prosecute every violent crime where we have sufficient evidence to meet our burden of proof. Kids need to face consequences and be held accountable, and we are doing that. The rates speak for themselves.
Are you in support of moving the age of minors here in D.C.? That's one of the bills that we have this week.
The residents of the District of Columbia, the 700,000 of us who live here, know more and care more about how we're going to make our city safe than anybody else.
You didn't answer my question.
The residents of the District of Columbia and their elected officials do not believe we're going to make ourselves safer.
Why do you think the rest of the country? Why do you think the rest of the country considers somebody at 18 years old no longer a minor? Yeah, what is it here in D.C.?
The age of anyone younger than 18 is a juvenile in the District of Columbia, just like the rest of the country.
Don't you guys consider people that are 20, 25 and below minors?
I think you
And
misunderstand
the gentleman's time's
the law,
expired,
sir.
but feel free to answer that, General.
Well, I think you're misunderstanding the law, and I think you're referring to the Youth Rehabilitation Act. But in our city, youth younger than 18 are treated as juveniles. The Youth Rehabilitation Act involves a totally different set of adult defendants in criminal cases and involves a different issue that the city has confronted. And I think that issue has been conflated in some of the laws that this body has put forth. And I really wish we could have had a conversation beforehand so we could have explained better what the YRA does relative to all of the other laws that we have in our city that we're working every day to help drive juvenile crime and violent crime down. Thank you.
So you support the Youth Rehabilitation Act? I think that was the question, one of the questions he was asking. You support that?
The question was whether or not
Do you support the Youth Rehabilitation Act? That's part of what we're repealing.
2.5 minutes over.
Okay, all right. Time's expired. We pursuant to the previous order, the chair declares the committee in recess. Subject to the call of the chair, we plan to reconvene in 15 minutes at the request of the witnesses. Committee stands in recess.
Did you request?
I didn't request.
All right, you've been listening in to D.C. city leaders testifying in front of the House Oversight Committee, talking about D.C. crime stats, some of the House bills that recently passed, D.C.'s home rule, statehood, and much, much more. We'll continue to follow this. We are still streaming it on our Fox 5 DC YouTube page, and Bob Barnard will have much more coming up this evening and this afternoon on the DMV zone and Fox 5, 4, 5, and 6. You're also taking a look at Air Force One on the tarmac as President Trump gets set to depart the United Kingdom. And in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, right now you're looking at David Rubenstein, the philanthropist. This is the Trust for the National Mall, a monumental conversation featuring David Rubenstein in conversation with the governors and first ladies of Maryland and Virginia, Wes Moore and Glenn Youngkin. The program will feature a bipartisan conversation about the National Mall as a symbol of American history, freedom, and independence as we approach America's 250th anniversary next year. Take a listen.
Event that happened not long ago where quite dangerous situation for her and her children, and it's not really been that well known, but I do think it's important to let people know what she did and on behalf of many people at that time. The governor of my home state, Wes Moore, is somebody that I admired from afar for a while because I was on the Johns Hopkins Board of Trustees, and ultimately Wes, a graduate of Johns Hopkins, was being put on the board, And I read the resume and I said, it's hard to believe anybody could do all this. He went to Johns Hopkins, raised by a single mother, went to Johns Hopkins and became a star football player there, and also a Rhodes Scholar, Phi Beta Kappa, and went to Oxford. And after Oxford, he volunteered to go into the military. Very often, people who are Rhodes Scholars say, well, I can coast through life. I don't have to go into the military in combat as well, not just go into the military. Went into combat in Afghanistan and risked his life on many occasions, for which he's won the Bronze Star. Thank you. But as if that wasn't enough, he also was a White House Fellow. And after he finished his White House Fellowship, as he was finishing it, he came to see me, and I said, look, the highest calling of mankind is private equity. Go into private equity. But he said, no, I want to do something more important in life than private equity. I said, what could there possibly be more important? But ultimately, he went to New York and was involved in a philanthropic project for quite some time, the Robin Hood Foundation. He was the president and CEO of it for quite some time. Came back and was elected governor in his first foray into politics. And I remember telling people that he had no chance of getting elected governor because he hadn't run for anything before. So my prognostication is not very good, either Glenn or the governor of Maryland. His wife, Dawn, is a native of New York, but she went to the University of Maryland, and that gave her Maryland bona fides. And she and the governor have been married for 18 years. They have 2 children, and they are indefatigable supporters of Maryland as well, and indefatigable supporters of the best baseball team in Maryland. So thanks to the governor for that. And I was just, I'd like to call up, if I could, the first ladies, and just give them our award, and you could bring it to me, and I'll give it to them. So, okay, can we bring it over? Okay. Okay, so let me just, I'm going to drop it. No. So this is the award that we give out to our most valued supporters of the mall, the History, Heroes, and Hope Award, and it's presented today on behalf of the Trust for everything you've done to support the mall and to support the whole region. And I want to thank both of you for what you've done. Let me give you, Dawn, yours, and ask you if you make a few comments. And then, Suzanne, if you'd like to say something as well, let me give you yours, okay? All right, do you want to say a word or two about anything?
I won't spoil the great panel we're going to have, but I would just like to say thank you, David, thank you, Catherine, thank you to each and every one of you who have supported this historic and most tremendous effort for our country. I feel very grateful, along with my husband, to be here with all of you and to receive this amazing award.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we know that everyone in this room is here for purpose. All of you give generously of your time, of your treasure, of your talents. We're so grateful, and we'd like to encourage you to continue to support the Trust for the National Mall, because we know that as our front yard, it is a place where we as Americans, an American family, gather, and that's such a privilege. And Glenn and I are so honored to be here and so appreciative of this very special honor. Thank you very much.
All right, you've been listening in to a roundtable event celebrating the National Mall with the governors of Maryland and Virginia, Glenn Youngkin and Wes Moore, along with their wives, the First Ladies of Maryland, Dawn Moore, and First Lady of Virginia, Suzanne Youngkin, along with David Rubenstein, celebrating the National Mall ahead of the big celebration for America 250 next year. They're talking all about the importance of the National Mall and more. Tom Fitzgerald will have much more on this coming up a little later. Meanwhile, you also see Air Force One now on the move as President Trump makes his way back to the United States after that overseas trip, brief overseas trip to the United Kingdom. And speaking of flights, we want to talk about Reagan National Airport now, and the news is not good. A new study shows that Reagan National has the highest percentage of flight delays of any major airport in the country. Ensure My Trip analyzed Department of Transportation data from January through June and ranked Reagan the worst for on-time performance. Now, others in the top 10 include Palm Beach, Newark, Cincinnati, and Dallas-Fort Worth. This also comes as the Department of Transportation has scrapped a President Biden-era plan that would have required airlines to pay cash compensation for delays not related to weather. So joining us now live to talk about this list and why travel insurance could be key to protecting your trip, protecting your family and yourself, is Insure My Trip CEO Suzanne Morrow. Thanks so much for joining us on the Live Zone on this Thursday.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I want you to talk to me first about the list. What makes DCA so bad? And I also want to acknowledge, obviously, DCA back in January suffered a deadly plane crash and the possible impact that could have had.
Sure. So the biggest thing in that area is congestion. I don't think that's a news flash for anybody that lives in the area. There is quite a bit of air traffic going on, as well as having to, if you will, thread the needle. So there's definite places that flights can't go, so the flight path matters. The other big thing on the Northeast is we have a lot of thunderstorms during the spring and into the summer. And then, of course, it snows a lot. So those are some of the big reasons why we see that. Whether or not a major accident actually has a direct impact on delays or cancellations, I would say at the time, yes, but longer term, probably not so much.
So obviously the airport has been in the spotlight since then. Compounded with this list that you guys have, do you expect to see any improvements in the near future?
Unfortunately, we're in hurricane season, so that obviously has an effect. So it's not just the hurricanes, it's the tropical storms, the nor'easters, refer back to what I said about weather. The Northeast seems to be, the whole East Coast actually seems to be prone to worse weather than, say, out west.
So DCA is also one of the busiest airports, like you said, whether it's congestion or whether it's passengers. Is it just a matter of convenience, and does it matter that it ranks so high on this list? Will people keep going there no matter what, even though they have Dulles and they have BWI as alternative options?
So talking about locals, possibly, but I know from someone that travels out of, Insure My Trip's based out of Rhode Island. We don't have a whole lot of options in terms of direct flights out of our airport without going to Boston. So that's a huge connector. So DCA, whether you're coming into Rhode Island or going out of Rhode Island. So some people wouldn't have a choice if they wanted to avoid it.
That makes sense too. All right, well, you mentioned passengers no longer getting cash compensation for delays. What does that mean for travelers?
So I think there was some excitement when it was talked about these rules being put into play. So it would mean for folks that they maybe wouldn't have to purchase travel insurance. There's so many other reasons other than just flight delays to purchase travel insurance. But if we focus solely on that, there are costs that you can incur by having a delay. So let's imagine you're supposed to fly out in the evening. You can't fly out until the next day. You have food costs, you have potentially hotel costs. Travel insurance can pay you back for that. So that's not something you're going to recoup from the airline. Even with the DOT rules that were going to be put into place, you're still not going to recoup things that you could get should you purchase travel insurance.
Well, let's talk about travel insurance a little bit. Anyone who has traveled knows you get the prompt once you've made it to that step. Do you have any sort of numbers about how many people actually choose to get travel insurance for their trips?
So it varies. So I think you're talking about what we refer to as the point of sale or convenience purchase. So you're buying your tickets, your airline tickets, for example, and you get the offer of insurance. Those products tend to be, I'm going to call them light on benefits. So, and they actually don't cover a whole lot. So the post-market purchase, that's where Insure My Trip comes into play. So we're a comparison store, basically, an e-commerce comparison store. And you can compare lots of different products and you can get better coverage sometimes for less cost than what you would pay for what we refer to as a ticket protector when you're talking about the point of sale, you know, for your airline tickets. So, and you get better coverage and it covers more than just your ticket.
And that's something you can buy from Insure My Trip after you've already booked everything else?
Correct. And we do know that in general in the United States, the uptake on buying travel insurance is less than, say, the Europe, the UK, Canada, because in those countries, folks know the value and the need for travel insurance more from a medical expense. So
we know one missed flight can absolutely derail a trip, whether it's the plans that you had made, whether it's the rental car that's no longer available, whether it's the hotel reservation that's no longer available. How comprehensive is this travel insurance that you can get?
So you can buy everything from just a basic post-departure plan, which means once you're on your trip, you have coverage, to coverage that can start, I buy it today, my coverage starts effective tomorrow. So if I can't travel for any covered reason, I can get my non-refundable trip costs back through the insurance. And you have plans that also cover you once you're on your trip, should you have to cancel due to a family emergency or something goes wrong on the trip. You can also get interruption coverage as part of the travel insurance. So there's so many different products out there, and each trip is going to be a different concern that you're looking to cover potentially. And it all comes down to the non-refundable part of what you purchase. So if you have something that's refundable, you wouldn't want to necessarily insure that dollar amount. Can't double dip, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Makes sense. All right, we're going to take a quick break. More Live Zone, the 1 o'clock hour coming up after this. Welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone in the 1 o'clock hour. Right now, you're taking a look at an event that is supposed to be celebrating the National Mall, but it looks like there may have been some protesting or something, because it looks like all of a sudden someone was rushed right out. Camera now going back to Virginia First Lady Suzanne Youngkin speaking right now. This is celebrating America's 250th birthday next year. Let's listen in.
So dedicated to our safety, to our well-being. They are the most brave men and women I know, and I was separated from them. They were on the other side of the river. So I did not take that helicopter because we had food and water, and we knew that there were a lot. We were about 2.5 miles from Camp Mystic. Right. And so we saw helicopters going to rescue, and we knew it was very important that they continue to do that work.
Okay. So, Dawn, you went to the University of Maryland. When you were in College Park, did you ever say, I'm going down to the mall to have a good time, or not really?
Yeah. Well, I did sometimes, and I just want to thank Suzanne for sharing that story.
Thank you, Dawn.
Wes and Glenn were on a panel, and Glenn shared that story, and very inspired by your bravery, and thank God for your safety.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it.
So I grew up in Queens, as you shared, and I remember calling my cousin when I was deciding what college I was going to go to. And she said, well, if you want to be involved in public service, you need to be in the DMV. And so I chose University of Maryland, College Park. And its proximity to DC was perfect, and that was our city. And so I would come down to Haynes Point and to see all of the monuments, and spent a lot of time down here. When I was at University of Maryland, I revived, along with some other students, the NAACP on campus, and we took a group of students down to the Million Man March to support those who were marching on the mall at that time. And so, and Wes and I spent time there when President Obama was inaugurated. So we have many amazing memories with our family and our friends, and it was definitely a place that inspired me.
Okay, great. So, Glenn, what has been the most enjoyable part about being governor of Virginia?
I thought you were going to ask me an easy one, like which one of your children do you love most? Wes and I have talked about this before. The privilege of going to work every day, and in my case, serving 8.8 million Virginians, and recognizing that we have an opportunity every single day to make things better tomorrow than they were yesterday, to drive economic development and job creation, to make sure that our schools are educating our students to be prepared for a future, to make our communities safer, to overhaul the way we think about behavioral health so that we can meet Virginians where they are when they need to be met. The work every day is extraordinary. And there's not a day I go by where I don't thank Virginians. Thank you for hiring me. Thank you for hiring Suzanne, because it has been absolutely beyond any of our dreams at how purposeful we felt every single day. I have to say, one of the great aspects of being governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia is the history in Virginia. And I say oftentimes, and I apologize, first of all, to all of my friends who might hail from one of the other former 12 colonies, but America was made in Virginia. And, you know, we can't help but just start with the father of our country, George Washington. And the fact that Thomas Jefferson penned the most immortal words written in this hemisphere, in my view, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, and they're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, this was a remarkable sentiment that, by the way, America failed at the beginning, and yet was able to correct. And yesterday, the father of our Constitution was once again reminding us all that we the people does mean we the people. We the people. James Madison's words were extraordinary. And so, as governor of Virginia, I am standing on the shoulders of giants every day. Patrick Henry was our first governor. Thomas Jefferson was our second. And this other guy no one's ever going to remember, Glenn Youngkin, was our 74th. But at the end of the day, that, David, gives us grounding, I believe, to discuss really important topics, really important issues, and to address them based on principles and values that oftentimes started in Virginia.
So what state in the United States out of the 50 has had the most presidents come from that state?
I
think it might be Virginia.
I think so, right. Okay, and why is it that's the only state with only one term allowed, consecutive term? Why is that?
Well, the founders of our nation were also the founders of the Commonwealth of Virginia's Constitution. And if you remember, there was this person named King George III, and they didn't particularly like monarchs and kings. And so there was a real hesitancy to deposit too much power into the executive branch. And so governors at the beginning of Virginia served one-year terms. They could serve 3 of them. And along the way, they found that to be kind of cumbersome. And so the Constitution was then changed to give a governor 1 4-year term. And it's never changed since. And I have to say, it keeps you focused every single day to make sure that you're delivering on 8 years worth of work in 4 years.
Right. So what's the most enjoyable part about being the governor of Maryland?
You know, I think about one of the moments that happened when I made the decision that I wanted to do this in the first place. And I was running an organization. It's one of the largest poverty-fighting organizations in this country. And, you know, one issue that if I could end the issue of child poverty and give it all up, I would. It's just the one issue that I'll literally stay up at night thinking about how unfair it is as a society that any humane society could allow children to grow up in poverty. And I remember working with a former governor on an issue of the child tax credit. We were trying to get them to make a chance to change in the child tax credit, how we could actually half the number of children in child poverty, all this kind of stuff. And I told him he should talk about it in the state of the state, and you know, gave him a line he should use in the state of the state. I turned into a speechwriter. It was great. And I remember getting an advance copy of his state of the state, and there was nothing in there about the child tax credit.
All right, you've been listening in to Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and Maryland Governor Wes Moore explaining what they like best about being chief executive of their respective states. This is happening during a celebration of the National Mall as we count down to America's 250th anniversary. That event happening downtown. Tom Fitzgerald is there. He'll have much more on it coming up. In the meantime, we will keep streaming that on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. But in the meantime, we want to take you back to Capitol Hill. The mayor and other DC leaders back after a brief 15-minute recess to answer more questions in front of an oversight hearing committee. We'll listen in.
Alleviating crime in Washington, D.C., we had, as we all know, an aggressive markup last week. And, you know, the bills addressed, many of them, juvenile crime. So, General Schwab, do you agree or disagree that there's a juvenile crime problem in Washington, D.C.?
I think we need to make sure that when kids commit crimes, particularly violent crime.
But is there, I mean, it seems like looking out the window at night from Barry, there were a lot of kids running around. You know, a lot of the carjackings were committed by juveniles, just an excessively high juvenile crime rate. If you define juvenile as, you know, the way your definition under 24 is.
Well, here in the district, Mr. Chairman, juveniles defined as younger than 18. My office is addressing every violent juvenile crime that we have.
So there's no crime. There's no juvenile crime crisis in Washington. Is that what you want to say?
One crime from a young person
Okay,
is
you
one
said
too many.
Chairman Mendelson, is there a juvenile crime problem in Washington, D.C.?
Well, the challenge, Mr. Chairman, is that what does problem mean? So if I were to say yes,
that's good.
no, there's too much.
No, I mean, if you can't say there's a juvenile crime problem in Washington, D.C., that's why we have to come in and help out a little bit.
I'm trying to give you
And many of us believe that the juvenile crime problems were created by excessive criminal justice reform. Now, I supported criminal justice reform back when it first became a thing in Kentucky. So did another Republican, Rand Paul. At that time, it dealt with incarcerating young people because of possession of marijuana. And I believed then, and I still believe that you know, that was an excessive penalty to pay for what is now legal in most states, marijuana, and it did appear to me by the numbers to have a trace of racism in it, that it seemed like many times white kids that got possession of marijuana somehow got out of it over black kids. I believe that. I said that publicly in Kentucky, but over time, the activists, continued to expand that to no bail, cashless bail, to raise the age of what is a juvenile, and treat juveniles to where they got a slap on the wrist even if they committed a serious crime. And that's why we stepped in. So you all have said, and I'm talking about Chairman Mendelson and General Schwab, that you oppose every bill that we passed out of this committee. I believe Ms. Norton read letters of opposition from you all on the bills. What is the answer to juvenile crime? And I mean, do you think it's working? If we do nothing, which is what the Democrats in here want to do, and which is what I think you all want to do, is it going to get better on its own?
Mr. Chairman, if you want a conversation, yes or no is difficult for a conversation. What do I think we can do to reduce juvenile crime? Because I do think there's more of it than there should be by far. I think for one thing, we have to address public education and attendance. We have to look at kids who are missing school and see that as an opportunity to identify why they're missing school. There may be something dysfunctional in the home or with that juvenile that needs to be addressed.
And I'll let you answer a lot of questions, Mr. Mendelson, but we believe that the message has been sent that if you're a juvenile and you commit a crime in Washington, D.C., you won't be held accountable.
And that is a mistake if that's the message, because that's not the message that any of the three of us
Well,
think.
we're not saying that's the unintended consequence of the laws that the council passed. And to the mayor's credit, she vetoed several of those laws. And I don't think, another thing they always say, and I think Mr. Jackson said, a takeover, from the National Guard. In Kentucky, when we had the Breonna Taylor riots and stuff in Louisville, Louisville's Democrat mayor, and we have a Democrat governor in Kentucky. Without hesitation, the Democrat governor, along with the support of the mayor, allowed the National Guard to come in and restore order. No one in Kentucky complained about the National Guard coming in. No one said it was a takeover and they were going to have to train and educate the youth on how to respond to the National Guard. That was just what was done to restore order. So we support what the president's doing. We want to work with the council and the mayor's office and the AG to try to come up with solutions to the problem. But doing nothing isn't working. And that's kind of what my colleagues over here want to do, creating more government programs, hiring more government bureaucrats. That's not worked. That's been the business model in the past, and it's not worked. It's not worked in Washington, D.C., and it's not working in a lot of other cities. So hopefully we can continue to have dialogue and come up with solutions to solve the crime crisis, especially the juvenile crime crisis in Washington. Now, the chair recognizes Mr. Khanna from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, this administration has initiated the largest assault on the First Amendment and free speech in modern history. They're making comedy illegal. Brendan Carr pressured ABC to cancel Jimmy Kimmel, and Disney cancels Jimmy Kimmel. This canceling from an administration that lectured us about cancel culture. That's why today I'm introducing a motion to subpoena Brendan Carr, to bring him in front of this committee, to stop the intimidation of private businesses and to stand up for the First Amendment. Now, it's not just Brendan Carr. Attorney General Pram Bondi is prosecuting hate speech, even though hate speech is constitutionally protected. And even though we've had so many lectures from my friends on the other side of the aisle not to prosecute hate speech. And then what about our vice president, the champion of free speech, as he told us during the campaign? The vice president is telling Americans to snitch on fellow Americans who have offensive posts and to call their employers so they can be fired. And the vice president is threatening to prosecute political organizations that he disagrees with. Look, We are Article 1 of the Constitution, not foot lackeys for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. It is time that we stand up for our constitutional role to defend the freedoms of Americans. People are tired of us just giving our power to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. We have an obligation to our Constitution, not to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as they ride roughshod over the First Amendment. So in the name of all those who are being censored in Washington, D.C. and around the country, in the name of all those who are being intimidated in Washington, D.C. and around the country, in the name of Americans, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats who believe in the First Amendment and free speech, I motion today to subpoena Brendan Carr and to have him explain to the American people why he's bullying private individuals and private businesses. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to this rule, and I'll get the exact language so we make it official. Pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2.6, I motion to subpoena Brendan Carr to come before this committee and testify in front of the full Oversight Committee, and I hope that my motion to subpoena him will be voted on as soon as possible.
A motion is made. The committee will hold this motion in abeyance until 1:45. Give everybody time to get back in here.
Thank you.
And if I might say,
Yes, sir.
I know Brendan Carr well, and
Mr. Chair, I hope you'll have him come in.
I think we could do that. I think
I
we could,
appreciate that, sir.
We could. I don't think the motion's necessary, but I think he would. I'm pretty confident he would be willing to come in to testify. So
thank
I'll just say that. I don't think the motion's necessary. You want to withdraw the motion?
I still want the motion, sir. Well,
right.
you know, we'll do it, and he can come in. But I'd appreciate, I've appreciated your working with our ranking member on Epstein, and I've appreciated your collaboration with him. Of course, I appreciate our ranking member's leadership on this issue, and he deserves a lot of credit for our subpoena today. But, if you want to work with our ranking member on a collaborative process on that, like you have been on Epstein, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'd also like to second the motion.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And first of all, thank you, Representative Khanna. And Mr. Chairman, I think that's a great offer. I think we're very interested in what's happening, and if we could come to an agreement, I know we have another 30 minutes or so before we actually take this vote, but if we can come to an agreement prior to that, I'd like to talk to Mr. Khanna and to you, because I think our goal, and clearly yours, is to get him in front of this committee. I think it would be very productive.
And I think he would want to come. Well, nobody wants to come in front of the committee, but I think he would be willing to come in front of the committee. So
I think we have.
We'll make sure our staffs are in communication, and we'll see. But your motion is recognized, and we'll see if we can come up with something before 1:45. If we can't, we'll vote on it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Sessions from Texas.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I first want to thank the members of the panel who've taken their time to be with us today. General, you and I met on the street the other day, and you were most elegant in your discussion with me, and I welcomed you to the Hill, and I'm glad that you were here. Mayor, thank you, and I'm glad you're here. I've got a note for you that I want to bring to you also. I think it's important for us to understand where we are coming from as Republicans, perhaps. I don't want to say that Democrats would be a lot different. I think it's just the answer of how you get there. We want this to be a safe town. We want this to be a town that works. We want this to be a town where people can come and visit this town and feel like they can come to our nation's capital and see things in a way where they're safe, their children are safe, they aren't worried about a drive-by shooting, they aren't worried about a lot of things that are very present in this town. They're very present in New York City. And we want to be accused of trying to help to make things better. So I became engaged, as I told the general, in trying to look at how we satisfy with a better answer, with another answer that I think is better on the Judicial Commission. You may be completely happy with the Judicial Commission. I looked at it and I am not. There are a huge number of vacancies where people have been nominated for years. Republicans, Democrats, President Biden, President Trump, leaders of the majority of both parties, and it's still hanging out there. And I simply believe that this city is entitled to our help. And that is what we are trying to do with these bills. I most sincerely, as I told the general, I most sincerely believe that it's not good to have, I don't know the exact number, but 10 or 12 people that have been nominated that are not serving today, and those judges that are on there on the Superior Court or on the Court of Appeals are vacant. And they've been vacant, some of them since 2013. This is darn near 2025. And I think that if you go to a model that may work, that's all we're trying to say. I think having the president, whether the president's a Republican, whether the president's a Democrat, will have an intrinsic interest. And I remember this when my parents moved us here in 1969. That we knew Washington struggled in lots of ways, but the presidents all tried to, every one of them, to do something that they saw that would better Washington. I believe that if we come and try and help with the most sincerity that our young chairman has, that I think our members have, it is not about trying to sparse words together about whether it's a local judge or not. It is a Superior Court judge that we're not going to replace any of them. We're trying to move forward to fill those seats of a Superior Court judge or of a appeals court, Superior Appeals Court judge. And on the floor, this thing got pitched as you're trying to make things that are simple about local judges. There's not much local about this in some respects. It is a national treasure. So it is my hope that you would perhaps look through some of the words that are said here and just accept the sincerity by which we come to you, and that I do, and I think our chairman, and I think the others do. We are trying to help. So, General, I looked you in the eye. You were most genuine with me. I want to be most genuine with you and say, maybe your feedback about what we do you might disagree with, but please give us at least credit. We're trying to leave it for any Republican or Democrat to make the decision, because they'll take the responsibility to get the judges.
Representative Sessions, I want to appreciate very much your spirit of working with us on this issue, because the vacancies on our court are having a very significant impact on our public safety system and our economy. But the problem with getting judges on our court is not sitting with the JNC. The way to solve getting judges on our court, and I appreciate your willingness to think about solutions, would be to allow our mayor to nominate judges and have our council confirm judges the way it's done in your state and states around the country, and we would get that vacancy on our Superior Court fixed right away. So there are multiple ways of getting it solved. I don't think the JNC is the problem. I think the problem has been in the White House and in the Senate, and we could solve this problem together if you would be open and your colleagues open to changing the law to allow the mayor to nominate, the council to confirm, just like states around the country do. And I appreciate your spirit of cooperation.
Yes, sir. And my only counter to you is, like a lot of things here, they have been in control of the council or the mayor, and we slightly disagree. We slightly disagree about the crime bill. We slightly disagree about a lot of things. I'm trying to fix it. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I thank you. We believe that if a president has some skin in the game in this town, Republican or Democrat, they will follow through and get those judges confirmed. I want to thank each of you. Mayor, I'm going to walk down and give you something, just a note. General.
Could I answer for just a second? I think the problem is, if Mr. Chairman, may I just?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
This is part of good dialogue, sir.
I agree. In my view, the problem is that the district is not important enough to the federal government. It's important today in this hearing, but that vacancy for 13 years, no president has seen us important enough to submit a nomination. Last December,
It's been nominated.
Last December, the
pending.
Senate didn't think it was important enough to confirm the judges that were pending that had been reported out of committee, because there are always other issues, there are national issues that are more important to you all.
But the president nominated them.
All right. Okay.
The president could have worked it.
Y'all can have good
And
conversation
the ranking
after-
member,
right.
thank you for allowing me this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ms. Randall from Washington State.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today as your city goes through these difficult circumstances. I've heard a lot of discussions over the past few weeks about public safety and crime in Washington, D.C., here on the Hill, and from my friends and neighbors who live in the District of Columbia. And these concerns about crime have been used as justification for President Trump's militarization and occupation. Like my Republican colleagues, I believe that federal government has a role to play in improving public safety. I would also say, like my Democratic colleagues, we believe that everyone deserves to feel safe. Where we seem to differ is that I prefer to focus on proven, not performative solutions. Proven solutions are those that invest in community, but my Republican colleagues arbitrarily cut $1 billion from the DC budget in March of this year, which has impacted the city's ability to fund the police, firefighters, and other public safety programs. And then, while holding these funds hostage, the president deployed National Guard in the name of public safety, instead of giving DC the funds necessary to provide safety. And at the same time, Donald Trump and congressional Republicans have made the largest cut in history to Medicaid, regardless of the fact that Medicaid expansion under the ACA led to a significant drop in violent crime nationwide. What we're seeing from this administration is unlawful, undemocratic, and follows the playbook of an authoritarian government. Across the country, a total of more than $4 billion in federal funding that supports American families, businesses, and local governments has been frozen or terminated. Withholding these federal government funds that have been constitutionally appropriated by Congress can and will be used to coerce other American states and cities into cooperating with this rogue administration in fear of having their cities occupied too. In Pierce County, in my district, they have nearly $200 billion of federal funds that could be at risk, which includes $706,000 grant from the Department of Homeland Security's Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention Program that was abruptly terminated. These funds were dedicated to implementing, like the name says, targeted violence threat assessments in our schools to mitigate youth violence and radicalization. The Department of Homeland Security's letter stated that the grant was being terminated in part because the department, consistent with President Trump's direction, is focused on advancing the essential mission of enforcing immigration laws, securing the border, and combating anti-Semitism. Consequently, grant projects that support or have the potential to support activities not aligned with DHS's current focus do not effectuate the agency's current priorities. What is so explicitly clear to me is that this administration's excuses of sending the National Guard to local cities in defiance of the local governments in order to address crime and improve public safety are an absolute sham when they are canceling funding left and right that would actually help our local governments address these very issues. Mr. Jackson, could you speak to how public safety is affected when you defund programs like targeted violence and terrorism prevention grants?
Yeah, I mean, a critical resource of our federal government has been helping states prepare to identify and intercept targeted violence across the country. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security was required to work with state government on that. But those resources through CISA and other preparatory agencies or departments are under siege. But what we're also concerned about is just the direct federal law enforcement resources for agencies like the ATF that are specifically focused on intercepting guns from getting into our communities. And again, with cities like DC, where 95% of the guns are coming from outside the state, that federal law enforcement is crucial, but are now experiencing over 40% cut.
Would you say, in your experience, that local investments, like funding for local law enforcement, funding for targeted violence and terrorism prevention, funding for ATF programs, would have a greater effect on public safety than the militarization of our cities?
It's a fact, and frankly, that's what we've seen over the last 2 years with a 31% reduction in homicides. This year, we're still tracking for another 20% reduction in homicides. And we think that's a direct result of the resources to prevent violence before it happens.
Thank you for your answer, for your work, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Chair recognizes Mr. McGuire from Virginia in the corner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for coming here today. You know, as a Navy veteran, as a freshman member of Congress, I love our country. And I love Washington, D.C., the history, the people, the culture. This is America's city. And I represent Virginia's 5th Congressional District. People from the 5th Congressional District come here for vacation or for work every day, and people from around the country. I think we should all agree, though, that whether you live here or visit here, you should be able to walk down any street in America and Washington, D.C. with your little girl or your little boy and be safe. And I think we'd be less than honest if we said that has not been a problem. And I want to say that the actions of this administration with President Trump have lowered crime and lowered murder rates to record lows. And so I want to start by saying, thank God, President Trump put your security and your safety, law and order, above other divisive ideas. We would not have a country without our men and women in law enforcement, and I see a lot of them around here right now. I just want to thank you. Each of you in your written testimony emphasized the importance of the work of the Metropolitan Police Department is doing to keep the residents of D.C. safe, and the need to increase funding for the department. And I have a very simple yes or no question. Do you disagree with defund the police movement? And I'll start with Mayor Bowser. Yes or no? Do you disagree with defund the police?
Yes.
Mr. Middleton?
Yes.
And Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Frankly, I think you should ask the president that.
That's a yes or no, sir. All right, Mr. Middleton, in your written testimony, you stated the following. Since 2020, police departments across the region and the country have faced challenges in recent years to hiring and have failed to hit their hiring targets. Can you tell me what major event happened in 2020?
The murder of George Floyd.
Mr. Middleton, in 2020, the D.C. Council voted in favor of a budget that defunded the MPD by more than $15 million. In the years that have followed, crime has skyrocketed in D.C. Do you still stand by this decision? I will remind you that this is a simple yes or no.
Well, as I said to
I just said a yes or no. I've got a very limited time with all due respect.
I realize that, but
all right, Mr. Middleton,
these
hundreds of
questions are more
MPD law
complicated
enforcement
than a yes
officers
or no.
have left the department since 2020 because they don't feel they have support from D.C. Council. In fact, the council not only voted to defund the department in 2020, you also went so far as to put a target on your officers and their families by releasing body camera footage with the officer's name attached. For all witnesses, let's talk about D.C.'s fiscal policy. Do you believe D.C. does a good job at managing their budget? This is just, I don't have much time with all due respect. Yes or no? So Mayor Bowser, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Middleton?
We do an excellent job.
Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
I find that interesting. I'm going to list a few of the programs funded by the city's approved fiscal year 2025 budget. $5 million to support D.C.'s host.
All right, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone. You've been listening to the House Oversight hearing, D.C. leaders testifying on crime policies, crime stats, defunding the police, and many other topics. This is still streaming on our Fox 5 DC YouTube page if you want to tune in. We'll also have highlights tonight. Bob Barnard will have all the highlights this afternoon. DMV Zone, Fox 5, 4, 5, and 6. First, though, we do want to lighten things up a little bit, get into some celebrity dish, and we've got our numbers guy here at Fox 5, David Chiari, joining us now live. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Third week in a row. I feel like
Third week in a row. But
that
first
people
for
are
me.
tuning in at a record clip. It's pretty
That's
crazy.
what I love to hear.
I know.
He
Bring the
brings the audience too.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
I do want to start off by saying I'm a little bit offended. The last time you and I were on TV together, you wore a full tuxedo.
Okay.
That was for the Take It Two. So apparently, I did not earn the honor of formality.
This is a Minnesota tuxedo. It's a little toned down,
Okay.
not as good.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, when Marina's there, you got to wear a tuxedo.
I
But for Chris,
understand.
I don't want to take your shine away. You got your suit on. You'll
The receding hairline does the shine enough for me. to be
That
honest
hairline
with
looks
you.
pretty good. I don't
No.
think you need any neutrophil.
I appreciate it
Maybe
very
me.
much.
Yeah, I'm getting there. One day.
Any other day, we probably would have been dressed exactly the same.
Yeah,
to be
that's
honest
true.
with you, because that is my go-to outfit, as a lot of people here know. Listen, we've been talking about the big story all day today, which is Jimmy Kimmel getting suspended. If people out there don't know, David is also a stand-up comedian. So I did kind of want to get your take on this story and also just kind of the state of comedy right now. Does it feel riskier than ever in a certain sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does. You also have a lot of competition. You have people on TikTok who have never actually been on stage, which is crazy. So you have digital stand-ups, then you have regular stand-ups. I don't agree with shutting somebody down because of jokes. But there's a penalty when all your advertisers leave too. So it's a double-edged sword. If you run a network show, you can't be out there saying crazy stuff. But if you run your own YouTube show and you want to say whatever you want, you can. So, but I don't agree with shutting people down. I don't love this hunting people down for what they say. I've never loved it. I didn't love it 4 years ago. I don't love it now. So,
okay. Let me just ask you one other question. When you're on stage and if the audience doesn't necessarily like a joke, do audiences know how to behave these days still?
Yeah, they just stay quiet. That's what they do. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's a haunting silence that I hope none of you ever experience. It's awful. It stays with you pretty much the rest of the day.
Flop, sweat, silence.
There is nothing worse
Man.
than working on a joke all week and then having 200 people, no one laughs. You'll take that one to the grave. So, yeah.
Where can people see you if they want to come check you out?
So
though, in the
I'm
meantime?
doing the Crystal City Sports Pub. I'm doing some stuff there right now.
Okay.
And then eventually work my way back into DC. But I'm just getting back on the horse. So it's taking some time. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, speaking of late night shows, you may have seen this. Leonardo DiCaprio is set to sit down with Jimmy Fallon next week. It will be his first Tonight Show visit since the year 2006, so almost 20 years ago. He's going to be there to promote his new movie, One Battle After Another, along with co-stars Benicio del Toro, Regina Hall, and Tiana Taylor. DiCaprio's last major late-night appearance was a cameo on Jimmy Kimmel Live. That happened back in 2019, but like I said, it was just a brief little cameo, not a full sit-down. He also made one appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman early in his career. Is this a man that just hasn't needed the help of the late night shows to sell his movies? Is something changed in the environment with trying to, get more eyeballs or get more butts in seats in theaters? Why do you think all of a sudden he's willing to do a sit-down interview?
Yeah, I'm surprised he's going to do something over 20 years old anyway. Isn't that, he doesn't like anything over 20, right? Is that not his thing? He's kind
25,
of yeah, oh, sorry,
believe.
20, 25.
25, I believe.
Yeah,
was his
he's
cutoff.
never needed. He's been the top dog for a long time. I think this goes to show you that I think he needs to push this movie. Whatever they're seeing internally probably doesn't look well. I mean, the new movie, it looks confusing. I don't know. Have you seen the preview?
I've seen the trailer for it. I know it's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie,
Fantastic.
which obviously award bait, let's put it that way. But award bait doesn't always translate into a box office success.
Right. So I think he's got to go out and push the movie. And yeah, he's, you got Timothée Chalamet. He seems more like the number one guy right now. So yeah.
Heir apparent. Yeah, exactly. So we will wait and see what kind of if he'll play any games with Jimmy Fallon. As we know, Jimmy
I doubt
Fallon.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe
He doesn't strike me as the type, does he?
I'm a guy, I'm in my early 40s. I
Likewise.
can't imagine. What am I? He's dating girls who are 25,
25
24.
years old. What do they talk about?
Yeah, what do they talk about? He doesn't seem fun. He probably wants to go to bed at 9 o'clock. But he's out at the club.
Have you ever heard the stories, and we can talk about this offline, about the
We're on Live Zone. We are offline.
The headphones.
What's the headphones? All right, you got to tell.
I'll tell you a little later. All right, let's
Tune
talk
in later
about
for that one, yeah.
Martha Stewart now, because she still has it going on.
Okay, yeah.
Any surprise there? During a recent interview, the 84-year-old revealed that she still gets hit on. She went on to confess she gets a lot of attention for her thirst trap post on Instagram. She did not clarify whether she's dating anyone at the moment. Instead, she's simply spending her time with friends that keep her happy. So sliding into Martha's DMs.
Yeah, I've done it. It's embarrassing. It was a late night. I was over at Chadwick's one night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my shot at Martha. Took one at Sydney Sweeney, too, after I did an appearance on the Take It, too. I thought it'd work.
So he likes the blondes.
Yes,
we know that
yes.
much.
But I don't think they like local news, so I wasn't working out. I'm not surprised. She's a very attractive older woman, yeah, she's got a radiance about her that's kind of very warming and welcoming. So I get the attraction.
Certainly does.
Yeah.
I have to imagine this is younger men if it's DMs and things like that.
Yeah.
Which, no shade there, but I will say I do love to. Is she carrying a cat on the red car? Oh, it's an ASPCA event. I will say I do like to introduce Martha. I know that she's this lifestyle guru, but I like to introduce, when I talk about her, as Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Martha Stewart, because remember, she was a cover star just a few years ago.
It was a one piece, to be fair, but yeah, it was not
Yes.
not revealing.
So was Gail. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
they
okay.
can be very attractive as well. No, we're not.
Chris, you need to
We're
take
not
your-
here to
No,
judge.
no. Chris is he's a happy man. He doesn't need to. I'm not, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about Thursday Night Football.
Okay.
All right, tonight the Bills taking on the Dolphins. Quarterback Josh Allen recently sat down with the Boardroom Talks podcast. He got asked who he would want to play him in a movie. The answer, not exactly crystal clear, and I say that because he named two Chris's who could possibly play him. First, he went with Chris Hemsworth, Thor star Chris Hemsworth. Then he changed his answer to Chris Pratt. He said Chris Pratt is who he always pictured. However, then he said Chris Pratt may be a little too old now. Allen is 29, Hemsworth is 42, Chris Pratt is 46 years old. Got me thinking, who would you want to play you in a movie?
I get a lot of Mario Lopez.
Oh, yeah, I can see
not
it.
to brag, not a big
I can
deal.
see it.
I'd like
AC Slater.
AC Slater.
For
Yeah,
the old heads like us.
For the young guys, I don't know. Maybe Chalamet put on like a 50 to 100 pounds, and then he could play me. The guy's he
plays
thing.
every. I mean,
but he could do a great Dave, I think. What about you, Chris? Who would you want?
So back in my younger days, and we have aged together, so this one actually could make sense, but back in my early days, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I used to get told I looked like Noah Wiley or whatever his name is from ER, now in the Pit. The man has aged phenomenally. I can't say the same for myself, but I would probably still gravitate towards him.
Yeah.
I think we both have kind of this big weird shaped thing going on, so I think you can pull it off. Yeah,
right.
but a large.
No.
As they say.
Chris, you're doing great. No, I see Noah Wiley a little bit. I think a better Noah Wiley, frankly. But
thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe
David?
he's the HBO Fox 5. He's the HBO Chris. Maybe. I don't know.
He's an Emmy Award winner.
he
We
does.
know that after that ceremony the other night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I
appreciate it very much. We'll
Take
take
care.
a quick break. More Live Zone coming up on the other side. All right, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone here with the Diva Chef
What is
for some
going
Thursday
on?
afternoon talkers. What's going on with
Yo,
you?
you're everywhere.
I know. I'm staying busy, which is always good,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, trying to
You got,
get the
hey,
sleep
Daddy
in
got to
where-
make that money, right? Because
Gotta make that money.
baby on the
That
way.
baby on the way,
Yeah.
exactly. I know, but I need to find a little time to get back into the gym.
Yeah.
And you're my inspiration
Oh,
for it,
thank
as
you.
always. All right, you ready to dive in?
Yeah, you can't be blaming the baby this early out for the dad
Right,
bod.
the dad bod before you're even a dad. I know. It's been my excuse forever. But now,
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about giving back a gift, and this is one of those topics we talk about every so often. And this story comes to us from, as always, Reddit. A woman says her ex demanded she return an expensive gift that he gave her. It was a golden necklace given by the on-again, off-again boyfriend at the time. The woman says the gift was meant to make up for their toxic relationship, and she believes she deserves to keep it. Commenters on the post agreed, saying a gift is a gift, and even advised her to file harassment or a restraining order to get him off her back. Other commenters suggested she sell the necklace online, force him to buy it back, and block him on everything.
Wow.
I am actually team petty in this sense. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Sell it and make them buy it back. If
Yeah,
it's that
yeah. I thought you were
important
going to say
you.
you Team Petty give the necklace back because I was about to judge you.
Absolutely
No,
not.
she needs to keep that necklace and she needs to take him for everything else she can get.
Mhm.
She definitely needs to block and delete this man and don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, a gift is a gift. What is he planning to do with it? Give it to someone else that he ends
Probably.
up in a toxic
Sounds like
relationship
it.
with? Who wants that?
Well, listen. No one.
No
No
one.
one.
No one wants
No one,
that.
producer
You know what?
Chris.
Okay, well, let's extrapolate on this a little bit. If someone enters a relationship, they plan to get married, there is a proposal, there is an engagement.
Yeah.
If that ring is not a family heirloom or something, if they went and got it together, is there any expectation in that sense that it should be returned?
No.
No?
No.
Get
A
to
gift
keep
is a
it?
gift.
A gift is a
You
gift.
gave me this because you wanted to get married. We
Mhm.
didn't get married, but we were engaged. So technically, that's the gift of the engagement. Go pawn it. Okay.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Then do you keep it? Does
No.
it do you try to transform
That's
it into something
definitely
else?
a pawn. No.
No? Okay.
You can't transform that and keep that old energy. You got to pawn that.
Luckily, I only did it once.
Oh, wow.
So, and it worked. So, you know, we made it down the aisle, and I didn't have to worry about that.
Okay,
But it was
good.
always one of those things. That was always a major fear of, like, ever asking for, like, a family heirloom, unless you were sure.
Did you give her a family heirloom?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I designed her ring based on a family ring.
Okay, period.
Yeah, so, you know, I took a little inspiration from it. All right, next up, we're going to jump ahead well beyond our own years, and we're going to talk about senior citizens, because apparently some quote-unquote senior citizens, this is the best file video in the world, by the way, older people not a fan of the word senior. Younger baby boomers who are in their early 60s say the word sounds old and they don't want to be reminded of their age. Now this, I mean, I guess this is where kind of that Gen X baby boomer overlaps.
Yeah.
They want to be separated from older boomers by being called Generation Jones, which interesting.
gosh.
Some companies are even changing the name of senior centers to things like community centers and active living to appear more attractive. What do you make of
Yeah,
this?
I agree with this. Don't call me no senior citizen. It does give old. It does give ancient. And I love the idea that they're revamping things as culture evolves, right? You got to evolve with the culture. Yeah. Don't stick me in no senior citizen place. Stick me in an active living joint. That just has a ring to it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's sort of, you know, we have to keep in mind, I think Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise are at least 60 at this point.
Dang, they're
George
seniors?
Clooney. Exactly. Well, that's exactly my point. Like, our perception of aging has changed so much.
Oh, yeah.
Not only that, but people have said forever that 40 is the new 30 and 50 is the new 40,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But especially as a lot of us delay life milestones and we hit these things a little later in life,
Yeah.
type of a thing. You know, I've been joking with my wife. You mentioned that we have a baby on the way. 18 years from next year, when she's graduating high school, I'll
How
be
old is-
60.
Wow.
So don't.
So is your wife your age or younger than you?
She's younger than me.
Oh, okay.
But you can bet your bottom dollar that if she chooses to go to a school where there's tailgating before football games, that her 60-year-old dad is going to be out there throwing them back.
I mean, I could totally see it. You have a young vibe. And do they call it geriatric pregnancy?
They
I think
haven't
that's
used
over
that word
30.
with us yet, but it lives in the back of our minds.
Yeah.
And I know there's a push right now. Jeff Gygax, our executive producer, and I were talking about this recently, that there's a push to kind of eliminate that terminology.
Yeah, they
because-
should. I mean, they should be respectful because women nowadays are having babies later. If you notice, there's a trend, and
yes.
so if you're healthy enough and you take care of yourself, you definitely can age backwards. I've seen some 20-year-olds that look older than I do,
true.
respectfully. So yeah.
Yeah. So
You're only as old as you feel.
I wish that we had gotten Tucker on this one.
Yes.
Because, you know, he's 50. He's 50 plus, and that
He's a young
AARP
50 plus,
He is
though.
an
He
absolutely
works
young
out.
50 plus, and you know, but that AARP card.
Shut up.
I'm sure that did get sent to him because I'm pretty sure that
Not
happens
AARP.
around 50 now. You know what it stands for. All right, next up. This one fascinated me. I saw it in the New York Times yesterday. We were talking about braces, tinsel teeth, metal mouth,
Wow.
if you will, because apparently it's cool now.
It is.
For teenagers
it's an
and
accessory.
tweens. Yes, it is. The article goes on to say braces, specifically metal ones, have shed their negative reputation and for some tweens and teens have become a coveted signifier of cool. In fact, more and more kids today are choosing braces, the metal braces specifically, over those clear aligners. 77% of patients in 2024 had metal braces. 23% had the clear aligners. Did you have braces?
I
Or
did
are
not
your
have
pearly
braces.
whites perfect? Yeah,
They're-
they were perfect.
I was born with these teeth.
Uh-huh. Very
But-
nice. Lucky.
Yeah, I see some people actually getting the colored rubber bands and coordinating it with their outfits and stuff. So it has definitely become a thing. Back in my day, you wouldn't be caught dead with no braces, but now, yeah, it's a whole thing.
I mean, so many kids I knew had to have them. I never did. Luckily, I mean, you know, it's debatable now whether I should have or not. But there was a point in my life where like I was a little jealous when a kid would get them because it
I'm
was like
cracking up.
it felt like a rite of passage in a
Yeah.
certain way and something I didn't get to do.
I feel like back in the day it was also a status symbol because not every kid could afford
No, not at
braces.
all. My brother had a headgear, and I
It's
still
crazy.
love finding the pictures of him, because you know he only had to wear it overnight. But
Oh,
there
God.
are some pictures out there of him wearing it, and man, oh man,
That's crazy.
Blackmail. Tom Smith, I'm looking at you. All right, last but not least, let's talk about a girl's night out.
Yeah.
Do you get to do it very often?
Not very often. I'm very busy and I value and cherish my sleep. I'm someone who starts yawning at 8 p.m.
You and me both.
Don't call me a senior citizen.
I would
but
never, because you can beat me up. Girls' night out is a must, though, according to a new research study. It found women need time with their gal pals every 22 days to feel balanced. A glass of wine and some time with the girls is one of the most grounding acts. Nearly 8 in 10 women agree that girls' nights are necessary to feel recharged, not just a nice to have event.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I'm down with girls' night out, but it doesn't even have to just be night. It can be day. You can do brunch. You can go to the spa. Yeah, definitely linking up with your girls is a thing because it's like, who else can you tell stuff to that's embarrassing that's going to get it other than your girls, right? Yes, I'm here for ladies' night. I think it should be like every 30 days, at least once a month.
Yes, it should be required. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's good. You know, I always encourage my wife to do it. She has a core group of girlfriends who, you know, they've kind of gone their separate ways these days. They used to all work together, but I know it makes her happier. And it, you know, and in the end, that makes the relationship better. Listen,
Period.
if you're happy wife, happy life. isn't
Yes.
that what they
Happy
say?
spouse, happy house.
Happy spouse, happy house. So I highly recommend this. On the other hand, I will say for guys, you know, I think most of us are just, once you hit a certain age, and I'm not speaking for everybody, you're fine on your own.
Oh, really?
You're just kind
So
of
the
turn
guys
it-
don't get
you
together
kind
like
of turn
ladies do
into
for
a
ladies'
hermit.
night?
I mean, I have a good group chat going, but at the same time, we don't prioritize it, I think, the way that we
Dang.
probably should sometimes, because, you know, we're all going through stuff. It's nice to kind of bounce ideas and thoughts off of people.
Link up
so
at the
maybe we
gym.
should take, yes, that's a great idea. That could be, yeah, there you go.
Start the dad bod group.
Yeah, that's coming up with good ideas here. I love this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending
Thank
some
you for
time with us.
having me.
All right, that does it for these talkers on a Thursday with the Diva Chef. Where can we catch you next?
On the Lion Lunch Hour.
Okay, and where can people follow you if they want to?
Diva Chef 412 on the gram.
Perfect. All right, thank you. We'll be right back with more Live Zone after this. All right, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone on this Thursday afternoon. Just about 2.5 minutes before the hour, that hearing on Capitol Hill, D.C. leaders testifying to the Oversight Committee now in a 5-minute recess. We will have much more on that coming up tonight on Fox 5, this afternoon on the DMV Zone, Fox 5, 4, 5, and 6. Bob Barnard will have all of the very latest. In the meantime, it's still streaming over on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. Coming up a little later, Khadijah Corey is going to join me live on Do You Like It or Not at 7:30 tonight. You can stream that right here on Fox Local. You can also stream it on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page, and you can join the conversation. We'll share the QR code coming up a little later. Here in the final 30 seconds, thank you so much for joining me. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to be talking Commanders, whether Jaden Daniels will be ready to take on the Las Vegas Raiders, and much, much more. We'll get an update on his condition. Thank you so much to everyone out there who watched us live today. We'll see you tomorrow. The Take It 2 coming up next.